So I'd like to start by saying we're here in the State Rotunda today with hundreds of Butler Hospital workers on the 1-week anniversary of the Butler Hospital strike. And, you know, the choice of strike is a hard one for healthcare workers. Our members have dedicated their entire adult lives to care of other individuals, particularly in their most vulnerable moments. Behavioral mental health, drug and addiction services. And, you know, after a week of being on the picket line and talking amongst ourselves, we want to bring to light the reasons why there is this strike. You know, today behind me are pictures of the workplace injuries that have been happening at Butler Hospital. And in particular, Butler Hospital, since 2022, there's been a 41% increase in workplace injuries. Since January of this year, there's been 141 workplace injuries due to violence. 141. We represent 700 caregivers in that hospital. Now, to put it in perspective, in 2022, there was 168 injuries in the entire year. But in the first part of this year, 141. Why? I think the answer is pretty clear. Poverty level wages, tough working conditions, a turnover rate that is unsustainable. Now, you know, a lot of what you've heard from Care New England over the last few weeks, the last week of our strike, is that they're willing to negotiate. They're willing to sit down and hash this out. I do want to remind the public, we negotiated for 2 months. And I want to say something about what the factor of those negotiations meant to our members. On the very first day of negotiations with Butler Hospital, their high-priced Boston anti-union attorney, the very first proposal made by Butler Hospital was something that they've refused to address every day since. For nearly 40 years, our members in the dietary department, many of which are the lowest paid in the hospital, and when they're done feeding the hospital, done with lunch service in the cafeteria, done feeding the patients their lunches, before they throw the food in the garbage, they're allowed to make themselves a plate of food. What some of our members have done in the dietary is they take that plate home to feed their kids, because some of them are only within $1 of the state's minimum wage. I want people to think about that to be able to survive, Butler Hospital workers have had to take food that would otherwise be thrown in the garbage to feed their children or feed themselves. And, you know, again, Care New England says they want to negotiate. But on the first day of our negotiations, Butler Hospital said, I don't want those workers to have free food anymore. I want to charge them for that food. I asked across the table with their attorney, again, a nice anti-union attorney from Boston, who said, well, we're losing revenue, Jesse. We can make $120,000 a year charging these dietary workers to eat the food that otherwise would be thrown in the garbage. You know, no matter how many bargaining sessions you have with an employer, in this union, in New England Healthcare Employees Union District 1199, our members' dignity is not up for negotiations. Is that right, guys? Care New England says that they want to bargain. But does that mean they want to get to a contract that people are out of poverty, that people can afford health care, that people have an affordable retirement, that they can have career advancement, and by God, after a hard day's work, can make a plate of food before it's thrown in the garbage? Now, I'd like our members to be able to afford this on their own. But under the hospital's current proposals, our members would still have to eat the food, still have to take food home to their children, to feed them the leftovers from the hospital. That's what's been going on at the bargaining table. There's no matter how many sessions we have, if the employer refuses to recognize our members' dignity and humanity. That is up, not for negotiations. Now, we're prepared to sit at a bargaining table with Care New England that lifts our members out of poverty, that secures their benefits, that meets their needs, and balances those needs with the hospital's needs to operate. Our members have done that since the 1980s. Our members have done that across Care New England. Care New England has balanced their budget and become a profitable institution because of 1199 New England members. 3,000 of them have taken wage cuts, have worked harder, longer hours, for less than their competitors, less than their peers, to help right the ship at Care New England. Now, at this critical moment, in this environment, we need solutions to move people forward, because treading water means our members are going to drown. So again, I want to make sure that people understand the issues at hand of this strike. The choice to strike a healthcare facility is a tough one. I want to put it in context. For every injury our members have sustained, likely 2 patients have gone without the right care because of the lack of staff that day that led towards those injuries. 95% of our membership have said in contract surveys they feel unsafe coming to work. Unsafe going into their workplace for fear of injury. I know I've worked with members of our union at Butler who spent their entire adult lives working there, 40 years or more. And they said, I can't keep going in that place. I need to find a job that I'm not going to be hurt. And I'm not scared of getting hurt, where I can focus on my patients. And by God, some of them left. And they made more money. And that's wrong. So with that, I'd like to introduce a few members to give their stories about what has happened to them and the impact of that experience on them. So I'd like to have Catherine come up. Catherine.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Maynard. I've been a registered nurse at Butler Hospital for almost 7 years on our senior specialty unit, and I am a new delegate for our union. On June 18th in 2023, I sustained an injury attempting to restrain someone who was morbidly obese because there was not enough staff to safely restrain them. I herniated 2 discs, and I have 1 bulging disc, which left me out of work for 6 months. At 27 years old, I struggled with activities of daily living that I assist in providing to my older adult patients on Lipit 1. Despite returning to work and all physical activity, I continue to struggle with chronic back pain and sciatica flare-ups, and I probably will for the rest of my life. When injuries occur at Butler Hospital, we need to start flipping the narrative. Instead of us being asked what could have been done to prevent this, we need to ask that question to Butler Hospital administration. If you asked me 2 years ago if I could see myself retiring on Lipit 1, I would have said absolutely. But today, I'm going to graduate school because of the increased violence at Butler Hospital. It has made it an unsustainable workplace. Today marks the 8th day of our strike at Butler Hospital, and we're ready to go back to work to care for our patients and the group behind me and the people that I, as a delegate, represent that will provide higher quality and more compassionate care than any replacement worker could. We will not return to work until our unmet needs regarding our safety concerns for staff and patients, lifting each other out of poverty, and protecting our health care coverage are met. But Care New England needs to do the right thing. They need to hold themselves accountable by finally responding to our request to meet at the bargaining table that they have ignored since our last session on May 7th. Thank you.
It's the sacrifice of people like Catherine, who she's going to live with the impact of that injury for a long time. And I just want to be clear, our members are caregivers. Our members love people for their profession. For anyone to think otherwise is an insult to their professionalism, their dedication, and their sacrifice. And again, in that moment of time when Care New England gets to the bargaining table, I want to be clear with Care New England. I want to be clear with our community. You can have a difference of opinion about where money goes, but you can't have a difference of opinion about our humanity as human beings and as workers. So next I'd like to have Megan come up and share with her experience, share with us her experience.
Good afternoon. My name is Megan Kernan. I have worked at Butler Hospital for about 3 years now. I started as a float mental health worker on the inpatient units. And about 6 months ago, I recently transferred to the nursing scheduling department. This picture right over here is my shoulder. Back in April, about a year ago, I was involved in a restraint on one of the general treatment units, and the patient bit my shoulder right through my shirt and broke my skin. Other than that, I've had 2 other major injuries. I was punched in the face down in the emergency room, and then I also sprained my wrist in a restraint on one of the inpatient units, the intensive treatment units. I transferred positions because I was tired of getting hurt at work. I was done with being scared to go into work, wondering what was going to happen to me that day. And I just want management to realize that we are real people with real injuries, and it's time for them to take our safety more seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. So, since between 2021 and 2024, the number of workplace injuries that required medical attention quadrupled in a 4-year period. Again, why? The lack of staff, the high turnover rate, which also causes the lack of appropriate training for new hires to respond to people in the most critical moments of care. And I'll say again, we highlight these issues as we need a global solution to workplace violence at Butler Hospital. It isn't just a committee here, or we're giving you a little bit more money than we did the last contract there. It's about stability. And so again, I'll repeat the statistic. From 2021 to 2024, a quadrupling of the number of workplace injuries that required medical attention and care of our membership at Butler Hospital. That is unsustainable. If this were to happen in almost any other workplace, in any other setting, God forbid, a career predominantly male, this would be on the front page news of every newspaper. But because we are taking care of those with mental health issues, because our members are predominantly women, it is not. And that's why this fight is so important for our communities. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Amanda to say a few words. Thank you, Amanda.
I'm Amanda Butler. I work on the intensive treatment unit. It's been about 20 years, actually 20 years next month I've been at the hospital. So I prepared a little speech. I vividly remember an incident involving a patient with a known history of violence. He was giving one of my coworkers a difficult time asking for a toothbrush. I tried de-escalating the patient, who became very upset, charged at me without any warning, and took this toothbrush with the round edge and then stabbed me in the eye with it. Hence this picture here. I don't remember much except for falling to the ground, screaming, and I was in and out of consciousness during this time. But despite the severity of the injury, there was a lack of support from leadership, from management. Not many reached out to inquire what happened or just to offer support for me. I ended up struggling after that with workers' compensation and covering medical expenses due to this injury. I could not see for several months. I had stitches, my eye was closed shut. I had a lot of difficulty functioning. And mind you, at that time, I had 2 small children who I needed to care for, and I needed assistance myself to care for my 2 children. And I remember them being terrified and crying almost every day, wondering if I would see again. And honestly, it was very embarrassing being out in public too, going to my kids' preschool graduation with a black eye, just knowing what people were thinking at that time. This same patient, shortly later, ended up injuring another staff member. The hospital was not supportive of either of us. During that time, though, me and my fellow coworker, we luckily had each other to lean on during this time. It's just disheartening to know that the safety of the employees, it's not prioritized, and these serious incidents were simply just brushed aside during this time. I just really hope Care New England will do the right thing for us. Thank you.
You know, Amanda's story, again, and Megan's and Catherine's story are one of hundreds this year. Hundreds of this year. When does it stop, Care New England? When does dignity come back to caregiving? Because, again, we can have a difference on, what a wage looks like. There is no bargaining about our humanity and our right to have safe staffing in a hospital to make sure we're caring for people. So, I say it's interesting in the sense that Care New England hasn't responded to these issues in the public since our members has sacrificed on strike for a week now. All they say is we're willing to negotiate. Are they willing to get a contract? That's the better question. That's right. they willing to lift workers out of poverty? Are they willing to stabilize our benefits? Are they willing to invest in career advancement so that our members could come in a dietary or EVS department and leave as a nurse or a social worker? That's what we've always done in the United States. We've invested and allowed people to improve their situation in life. And the hospital's continued refusal to understand the humanity of our workforce is why we are on strike and why our members are prepared to be on strike one day longer than Care New England. I would just say this to all healthcare workers in the state of Rhode Island. If you don't have a union, get a union. Yeah. Because the reality is that healthcare isn't going to change in this state unless we have a collective voice to stand together and to make the change happen. We're the best fighting organization for working people, and it's the best place to make sure that we can change our world is in a union. Now I want to acknowledge the elected representatives that are with us today to see our members and their humanity and this tough choice that they made to strike. Representative Bennett, Representative Morales, Representative Handy, Senator Valverde, Secretary Amore, Senator Basilian, Senator Burke, Representative Cruz, Representative Kislak. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for seeing us. A few others, hold on, I got to flip the page. Senator McKinley, Urso, and Murray, thank you very much for being here. I also want to acknowledge the SEIU State Council, made up of SEIU 32BJ, SEIU 401, SEIU 580, which represents over 10,000 workers in public and private work across the state in health and human services, private sector security guards, janitorial cleaning, and in state service. Thank you for standing with us and our 1199 city. I want to acknowledge our movement siblings. What do I mean by that? Our movement for justice is encapsulated of not just organized labor, but organizations like Reclaim Rhode Island. Thank you for being here. And also a big shout out to the AFL-CIO, the building trades, and the Teamsters for being here as well. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce, and I'll say that a person that knows who we are in 1199 in a very unique way. I want to ask Representative Bennett to come up here and say a few words. Representative Bennett, retired 1199 nurse from Butler Hospital.
I love you guys. You guys mean a lot. We protect each other. It's time the hospital protects us. It's time that we have safe staffing. I had my shoulder dislocated and then smashed where I had to go in and have surgery. Butler fired me because my doctor wouldn't let me come back to work. I sued him and I won. Want to fix this problem? Safe staffing and fair contract, better wages, competitive wages. And we need to do it now. Our patients are sitting there with a bunch of sidewalk nurses, banjo mental health people who don't know what they're doing. But where's the continuity of care? You know, these people are looking for us. And then you're on the other side, you've got management saying that we're the ones being aggressive. Well, I don't think we're aggressive enough. I think we gotta make that enough. We want fair wages and fair contracts. Thank you.
I want to end by saying, you know, again, the stories and pictures that you've heard today come from the professionalism and the dedication of hardworking caregivers of Butler Hospital. And it's in that moment when our members made the tough choice about going on strike and setting a deadline for management. Now, I'm a parent of 3, and people know I talk about my kids a lot. I love them. Man, it's hard to have 3 kids. But as a parent, you set deadlines and expectations for your kids. We set a deadline of 17 days before this strike happened for this employer. Almost twice as long as legally required. It is the boss's choice. The boss chose us to strike by refusing to give us the wages, benefits, and working conditions that recognized our humanity and the humanity of the patients we serve at Butler Hospital. So, as Care New England continues to thump their chest and say they're ready to go to the bargaining table, are they willing to sign a fair contract that actually lifts our members out of poverty, actually saves our members from workplace injury, provides the quality of care patients deserve, and career advancement that our communities deserve? I want to know if that question is a yes or a no. And if it's no, we're going to stay on strike one day longer than Care New England can stand.